Hello and welcome to Working Wednesday. My name is Jennifer Tenney and I'm coming to you live from the Center for Excellence in Disabilities in Morgantown, West Virginia. Glad to have you with me today. Today I'd like to talk about a very important work incentive that goes along with helping people to be able to save money, to be able to assist them with things that they may need in the future that they can't necessarily save for right now. That's known as an ABLE account. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience and was actually signed into federal legislation in 2014. In West Virginia, it was signed into law on February 9th, and tomorrow is its 6th-month birthday. So very happy to have this program in West Virginia, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it does and how it can help you. Most of you know that for those who have means-tested benefits such as SSI or Medicaid or Title 19 waiver, all of those benefits require you to have a very small number of resources and assets, things that you have that you can use to help pay for items that you may need that are related to your disability. As we know, the typical standard is $2,000 a month is the most that you can own, and all your cash in the bank in order to be eligible for services such as SSI, food stamps, HUD, Title 19 waiver, etc. What the ABLE legislation did for people is it combined essentially three things: a traditional 529 college savings account, a checking account, and a special needs trust. It has a little bit of the aspects of all of those things, but it makes all of those things a little bit easier to access and use while the person is still able to use them. So I want to just talk a little bit today about West Virginia's ABLE and how you get signed up for that. So a few things before we start about how we get signed up with ABLE, a few things that you need to know. First, you do not have to be receiving federal disability benefits in order to be eligible for ABLE. There are lots of different ways that you can become eligible, but those who have SSI or SSDI are definitely eligible for ABLE services. The biggest qualifier for someone who is looking to open an ABLE account is that you must have had your disability prior to the age of 26. Now, you can be 60 years old and still have an ABLE account, but your disability must have occurred prior to the age of 26 for you to be eligible for this program at this time. You're allowed to put up to $15,000 annually into this account from calendar year to calendar year. Now, the person who the account's name is under is the person who owns the account, but anybody can put into their ABLE account. So there's actually some e-gifting options for parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, employers who wish to provide money into the ABLE account for a person to be able to use towards any sort of qualifying disability expense. And that is a very broad term, and it was left broad for a reason. ABLE wanted to be for folks to be able to use these funds for anything that they would need to live with a disability, to include things such as housing, education, food, some of the typical things that you cannot use other services for, and still maintain some or all of those federal or state benefits that you're currently receiving. They are tax-free earnings. And if you as the individual account holder are working, you can also include some of your income above that $15,000 a year to be eligible to have more money in your account. Now, you can only have one account per person, and that person does hold that account. The person who signs up for an ABLE account can be the parent or guardian of a person, but the person who works the money side of that has to be considered the guardian or the conservator, and that's a legal term that does not include currently representative payees. So it's important to understand that if you are a representative payee, you do not have the ability to say where funds in an ABLE account go currently. Everything is done online. West Virginia has partnered with the Ohio ABLE system called Stable, and everything you do is online. So you can go to the West Virginia ABLE account site, WVABLE.com, and you can click on the link to see if you're even eligible to apply, or you can apply right then. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to set up an account, and once you're up and running, you're good to go. There is a $50 minimum opening deposit, and there is a very small fee of $3.50 a month to keep your account active, and that basically goes towards the transaction fees for your Stable card. You receive a card in the mail that looks just like a regular debit card, and you can use that card to pay for any qualifying disability expense. And as I said before, those things can be very, very broad. This is also an investment program, so you are putting your money into some long-term investments if you choose to, in order to be able to build some of your assets and resources as well as you go along. So just a few examples of things that can be paid for out of Stable funds would be things like housing or rent, basic living expenses, medical bills, legal bills, education, transportation. Transportation is a big barrier to people with disabilities in this state, so you can use that money to pay for transportation, assistive technologies, and lots of other things. So what would be an example of a non-qualified expenditure? It's hard to come up with one because the definition of a qualified expense is so broad that you can basically say that most anything helps a person with a disability live in their community and live, in their community as a person with a disability. In order to spend from your account, you may spend as much from it as you want. There are no transaction fees or limits. And you're never really asked for an audit trail from the state, but the IRS can ask for those qualified expenditure receipts, so you always want to keep those on file, just like you would do any other tax deduction that you would have. Like I said before, you get a loadable debit card that comes to you that you will use. It is a MasterCard currently, and it can be used anywhere that you can buy qualified expenditures. Now, just a few other considerations. As I said before, these Stable West Virginia ABLE accounts do not count towards that $2,000 a month resource limit. And you can have $15,000 annually, which can continue to grow. Now, for SSI purposes, once that balance gets over $100,000, then we start looking at how is that balance going to affect SSI. But until we get to that point, we don't have to worry at all about how much is in that Stable account for a person to maintain SSI eligibility, Medicaid eligibility, waiver services eligibility, and so on. There's always a lot of questions people have about, well, what happens if the account holder passes away? And recently there were some rulings by the state about the state of West Virginia's Medicaid department may not go back and try to recoup their funds. But that is definitely something that you would want to talk to my friend Christy Pritt at the West Virginia State Treasurer's Office. And she would be able to tell you more about how those funds are affected if and when the person passes away. So again, as I said, you don't have to have an SSI disability, but you do have to have a disability that you can self-certify as having a disability as well. And again, the state is never going to ask you whether or not you have that disability but you have to be able to prove that you do if someone ever comes back and wants to do an audit. Right now in August is ABLE month across the nation, and the National ABLE Resource Network is doing a lot of great things regarding helping people to understand how ABLE works around the country. West Virginia has an ABLE account, and there are many other states that do. If you have a friend who's living in a state that may not have an ABLE account system set up for their state, there are lots of ABLE programs that serve people nationwide. West Virginia is not one of those. Right now, you must be a West Virginia resident in order to be a part of West Virginia's ABLE program. But let's say, for instance, that you move to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma does not have an ABLE account. I'm just saying, I don't know if they do or not. But if they don't, you could transfer your ABLE monies into one of the national ABLE account places where you could then be able to continue to access your money and continue to receive that sheltered funds in order for you to be able to use for your own benefits. So one of the things that the National Resource Network is doing is they're doing weekly webinars. This week's is today at 2 o'clock Eastern time, and it is just the basics about ABLE. And I'll be sure to link to that site in the comments when we're done here, so that if you have the opportunity or want to learn more about the ABLE program nationwide, you'll have the opportunity to listen to this 1-hour presentation about the ABLE program. If not, please feel free to visit the West Virginia ABLE site at WVABLE.com. Again, you can find out if you're eligible. You can sign up right there online. You can also call my friend Christy at the State Treasurer's Office, and her number is 304-340-5050, or you can send an email to wvable@wvsto.com. So that's West Virginia ABLE at westvirginiastatetreasurer'soffice.com. I know that Christy is really excited about this program, and so is the treasurer. I had the opportunity to sit with him a couple of weeks ago and talk about how this is going to be an amazing resource for West Virginians with disabilities to be able to save some funds that they need in order to purchase a car or purchase medical care that they may not be eligible for otherwise. So thank you for joining me this week on Working Wednesday. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to comment here in the comments. I will be captioning this video, and we will be posting it on the WIPA website, which is also linked in the comments area here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to give me a call. Please join me next month as we continue to highlight services and supports for people who receive Social Security benefits and how working affects those benefits. Have a great day.